And hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Words I Choose to Live By. I'm Cyrus Webb, joined today by Darius Ewing, Mary Ellen Ciganovich, and Melissa Banks. And a very special guest that's joining us a little bit later. We'll let you know who that is. Of course, we're discussing my book, Words I Choose to Live By. You all can see it there, available on Amazon.com. Invite you all to get your own copy if you have not gotten so already. If you're new to this program, this is what we do. We come together once a week to be able to not only to discuss the message from the book. Today we're discussing week number 15's message, but also to be able to give different ideas for you guys as to how you can be able to apply what you're learning. As I mentioned, we have a very special guest that's joining us a little bit later. Before we connect with Amazon here, going to make sure we have her. There she is, Dr. Taz. Hello, how are you?
How's everybody doing?
Hey, good.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, Darius.
Hey, good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah. We're going to go ahead, everybody, and connect with Amazon as well as our WYAD audience, and we'll get started, okay?
Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Words I Choose to Live By. Glad you all could join us, both for our audience online as well as those tuning in on the radio at WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com in Mississippi. We're glad you all could be with us as well. I'm Cyrus Webb, joined today by our regular co-host, Darius Ewing, Mary Ellen Ciganovich, and Melissa Banks. Also, we have a very special guest that's joining us today. So excited about this, Dr. Teresa A. Smith. You know her as Dr. Taz, the author of this book, Transformation. We're going to be talking with her not only about her book a little bit later, but also reminding you all how you can get all of these things on Amazon.com. We're going to kick things off, though, with this week's message from my book. We're in week number 15, and this week's message says, more to come. Step by step, day by day, you are growing stronger and more in touch with your purpose. It will be a shame to give up now. There are more great things to come if you just keep moving forward. And I want to say to all of you, when I wrote this message, I think all of us know what it's like to feel like things aren't happening quick enough. But, you know, it really is about that daily journey for us. And that's one thing I wanted to share for myself. To remember that every day is getting us one step closer. So I want to go around the table. Darius, I want to start with you. How important has it been for you to realize that this is a marathon and not a sprint when it comes to your goals and dreams?
Man, it took me a while, but I figured it out finally. The biggest thing was trying to do everything, or try to attain everything in such a small window. And when God has afforded us a longer window to do more in the first place, because now we see ourselves doing more than we thought that we could ever do. Because now you're saying, well, dang, I didn't think I could do that. I really put myself in the box when I said I'm gonna do this in this amount of time. So I learned that the marathon, as you run the marathon, you get stronger as you get toward the end. So for some of us, we're getting stronger phase because it's about to be ta-da, the big shebang. But I learned that, yeah, it's the sprinting, you would definitely get tired quick and you'll get burned out. And it'll make you think that you don't have a purpose, when all you got to do is just relax and just calm down. And like, okay, Lionel, look now, you know, I can't humanly do this. So let me rely on the person who put me in this position. And once you do that, it's like, hey, there it is.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mary Ellen, what about for you? I mean, we all want things when we want it, right? I mean, that's just, I think, human nature. But how important has it been to realize that life is a marathon and not a sprint?
Oh, well, you know, Cyrus, there are so many times I've even talked to you about, well, I think I've done enough now. I think, you know, it's time to quit or whatever. And every time you do that, you have to get up with your purpose in mind for that day. You have to go, like we were talking about last week, going beyond your comfort zone. And there are so many pages in Truth, Taking Responsibility Unleashes True Healing, that speak about never giving up and going forward with a purpose. It talks about recognizing your opportunities as they come about. Wake up and Be grateful for the opportunities that God has already given to you, and go forward. All it takes is just one step at a time, doing something better, not only to make your life better, and what can you do to make other people's lives better? And I always keep this phrase in mind, Cyrus: the best is yet to come. Because when we go through that, we can think, okay, God, what do you want me to do next? What is my next step on this journey? And all of a sudden that opportunity is there. Do not give up, because success is right around the corner, and be grateful for all the success you already have.
Yeah, such a great point. Melissa, what about for yourself? I mean, we all have been there where we want things to happen when we want them to happen. But how has it helped you to realize that this is a marathon and not a sprint?
Wow. It's one of the things, not only did I have to realize that it takes a while, it takes some ups, it takes some downs, but I also had to realize that sometimes I had the plan mapped out. I had how it was supposed to look, when it was supposed to happen, how it was supposed to happen. You know, we think we have the control, but the biggest leap and the biggest transformation, taking a word from Dr. Taz, for me was to just understanding that, you know what? Yes, I had it planned out, but that wasn't the way that God had ordained my destiny to go. So when you trust that your steps are ordered, you have to get to a place where you understand that, you know what, in 6 months, I was supposed to be in this place, but in 6 months, I wasn't there. I was someplace else. That was the biggest thing. And that has been the biggest thing for me, is understanding that even though I think I have it figured out, I think I have the direction and the timeline, it's not always going to work out in that way. But the belief is believing and keeping the faith that it's going to work out for my good in the end. And it may not have been what I thought it was going to be. Just going back to last year, in March of last year, I had the year mapped out. I knew what was going to happen. I knew what direction I was going in. I had it mapped out. But we all know March of last year changed everything, right? So the direction had to change. I had to figure out, okay, what is it that I still can do? And what is it that I need to learn to do? How do I need to learn to change the path that I thought I was in? And that's an everyday process. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens through a process.
That's a great point. Dr. Taz, we're going to get more into our conversation with you, but I want to ask you the same question. As we're talking about this thing of more to come, there is, there's a desire for all of us to have it all at once. So to have it, start something on day one and by day two to see it happen. But how has it helped you in your journey to remember that this is a marathon and not a sprint?
Thank you guys again for having me, Cyrus, and to the wonderful co-hosts. I was listening to your comments, and all of them resonated with me. And I think I would just like to sum it up by saying that, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we put undue pressure on ourselves trying to achieve everything all at once. Because I'm with you, Darius. I want it right now. Years ago, with a friend of mine, I used to have this saying, I want what I want when I want it. And he wrote a song about that, because we do. And that was long before instant things like, we had microwaves, but it was long before real email and internet per se. And so I'm really dating myself. The internet, anyway, we had email. But, what I've learned is that if I pace myself and take it in increments, it's easier to understand. And also I'm learning my lesson, but also, every day brings something different. The way I was one place 3 hours ago, 2 hours ago, and it's amazing how I could see one post today and it changed my whole perspective, because it validated something that I was feeling some kind of way about. And I think that's the way life is when we're trying to achieve our goals too. We get so fixated on whatever the goal is that we don't see that life is answering our prayers or guiding us. And we do that to ourselves. So for me, it's understanding Rome wasn't built in a day, and just pull back some. Don't keep pressing too hard, because I may fall because I keep pressing on that door, because the door going to fall open and I'm going to hit the ground.
There you go. It's a great reminder. I want to go to Mary Ellen here. And Mary Ellen did something earlier. And as you all are watching us on the Amazon Live platform, you all probably noticed this. But for those who are not on Amazon Live, I want to remind you guys of this. For those on Amazon Live, what they're seeing is they're seeing our great co-hosts here and our special guests, but they also are seeing the books that each one of us have written. And you notice that Mary Ellen, she held her book up, Truth, well, one of her books, Truth, Taking Responsibility, Unleash Your Secret Feeling. And we actually highlighted the book actually in the carousel on the Amazon Live site. So I want to say, if you're not joining us on the Amazon Live site so you can see the books, you can click that link that you see wherever you are to be able to go to be able to see all the books of course, our co-host and also a special guest. Marilyn, I want to go to you, though, and I'm highlighting again your book, Truth, right now on Amazon Live. But in this message, I also said this. There are more great things to come if you keep moving forward. I think we all would agree in the professions that we're in, especially as speakers and motivators, that we see people give up too soon. There's the one side that we talked about them wanting it now, but there's some people, when it doesn't happen on day 2, they're like, well, this isn't working, and they give up. What has kept you, Mary Ellen, from giving up, even when things don't look like they're working out for you?
Well, what's kept me going forward is, my purpose. I love to have a purpose other than taking care of Pete. And I used to teach middle school and all that kind of stuff. But my purpose comes from God, and my purpose was to write a truth of the day on the internet. And what keeps me going, so many times when I want to give up, all of a sudden somebody will say a great comment about one of my truths. And I'm like, oh, wow, that really helped somebody. And I figure if I reach one, just like when I taught middle school, if I reached one student that year, that was a successful year. If I reach one person through my truths of the day, that's a great year. If I reach one person through either truth or healing words, either one of my books, then it was worth all the pain it took to write the book. And anybody that's an author knows that it takes a lot of pain to write a book, not just to write it, but to get it out there. And you just have to keep going forward with your purpose, with your passion in your mind to what God wants you to do.
Yeah, such a great reminder. I want to say hello to Sherry Elise, who's joining us on the Facebook side of our broadcast. Appreciate you. Deborah Hunter says, what an absolutely great show. Enjoying the journey. Thank you so much for that, Deborah. Glad you could join us as well. Thanks all of those tuning in also on YouTube and LinkedIn. Appreciate you all too. I want to go to you next, Dr. Taz. We don't want you to be last all the time. Ask you a similar question, even though you are a special guest. We don't want to save the best for last all the time. But we all know, again, all of us have had this conversation that the teacher needs a teacher, right? The motivator needs a motivator. So I want to ask you, Dr. Taz, for yourself, what keeps you going even when things don't seem to be going your way or going in the direction you want?
Cyrus, for me, I think it's getting to a point where I know when I need help and being vulnerable enough to ask for help. I think that we're conditioned, particularly as women, and I'm going to say Black women, but I'm not going to be stereotypical. But I think we've been conditioned because of the roles that we traditionally played, that we have to be strong. We got it all together all the time. And it's a sign of weakness when we seek help. And for me, having written Stronger, How Overcoming Life's Adversity Can Push You Into Your Purpose. And then, of course, with transformation, I've learned that I don't have all the answers all the time. And in order to make true change or to transform, you've got to be willing to be vulnerable. So for me, being vulnerable with myself, first of all, and then those trusted individuals who I know are going to give me sage advice. You know what I'm saying? We're not in competition. They're going to give me sage advice. And that's what keeps me motivated when I have those days when it's like, oh, am I hitting it right? Is something off? And that's what I do. I reach out to those individuals.
Yeah, appreciate that. I'm going to go to you next, Melissa. For yourself, I mean, even though you are achieving things, we all kind of want things, as Dr. Taz mentioned earlier, we want things when we want them. What keeps you moving forward, Melissa, even when things don't seem to be going the way that you would want them to go or at the time you want them to?
But first of all, to me, it's the decision. What made the difference for me is when you make quitting an option, you typically, when it gets hard, you're getting a lot of no's, things are not working out. You've already in your mind made quitting an option. That is when you quit. So when I made a conscious decision that quitting was not an option, even though I want it now, that immediate gratification that we all need and desire, I'm there too. But what I have learned, that when something doesn't work out, then I keep moving to something else. I do it differently. I find a way to make it work. I go to someone who has done it, already succeeded. I tell people I talk to all the time, we are not in competition. When you want to get to a certain place, you put yourself in the room with people who are there. That helps motivate you. That helps keep you pushing, because the key, the secret sauce, is no secret sauce. It is not stopping. If you keep moving, you will reach your goals, and you will not quit. The minute you stop, quitting is an option, and that's exactly what you will do, is quit.
Yeah, great point. And Darius, what about for yourself, man? How do you stay motivated and focused even when things aren't moving in the direction you want them to, when you want them to?
Man, I have to remember what happened the last time I was in the same situation. It's just that simple. We sometimes we get in situations and we forget. We forget the same steps that we took the last time. The same steps you have to take this time, but the process might be a little bit longer. He might have to stretch you out just a little bit longer this time. You can't quit. You have to remember and rely on that good memory, and not feed into what people are saying, or not feed into what you're hearing, or not feed into what you're seeing. Because if he did it then, okay, he's gonna do it again and again and again, but it's not gonna be easy every time. It's not gonna be easy. So you have to embrace the challenge. Embrace the challenge. And it's a challenge, Dr. T, when you're trying to transform. That's a challenge. Yes. It's a challenge. So when you're willing to embrace the challenge and face it, hey, there we go. We can move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a great segue as we are wrapping up this first segment of Words I Choose to Live By this week, as we're discussing week number 15 for those who are joining us either on Amazon, on Facebook, those joining us on YouTube or LinkedIn, or through WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com. We're glad you all could be with us. We're discussing week 15 from my book, Words I Choose to Live By. More to come. And so we're going to do our final wrap up at the end, but we do have a special guest that's joining us today, Dr. Teresa A. Smith, Dr. Taz. I've known her now for years, glad to call her a friend. She's also the author of the book Stronger, but her new book is called Transformation. We referenced it earlier. It is out now. We definitely invite you all to get your copy. We're going to go ahead and highlight it in the carousel on the Amazon Live side. Our co-host has some questions for you, Dr. Todd. Before we get into that, Deborah says, what great advice. Remember the process, the value of reaching just one person, refusing to quit. So important there, Deborah, for sure. To get things kicked off, we have Melissa Banks. Melissa, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Wow, Dr. Taz, it's so good to see you again.
It is good to see you also, Melissa.
I was so excited and looking forward to it. And my book, Transformation, finally arrived last night at 9 o'clock. I was so excited. It made it before today, so I'm excited to dive into it. But I did listen to some of your interviews that you were in your series that you're doing with Cyrus, and just the two that you've had already have just encouraged me and built me up so much, and I appreciate that. I wanted to just say that. But I have to ask you some questions. So I want to start with the mindset. One of the things that you've mentioned and you've talked about before, and I definitely believe that everything starts with the mindset. So when you start thinking about transformation, how important is it to start with your mindset and get your mindset in a place where you can accept transformation?
Thank you, Melissa. And look at God, as my sister would say, it got there just in time. But, you know, when you talk about the mind, years ago, a friend of mine made a statement. We were on a college campus. We were in a dorm room, and she made a statement to a gentleman who was president of an organization. And she said, when the head is wrong, the body cannot be right. And I've never forgotten that. And so I use that as the analogy. Our mind is so important. It controls everything. And so when our mind is in a negative space, there goes the rest of your day, the rest of your body. You start to feel it, even though you don't always know what you're feeling. So we have to work on our mind, and we have to learn to have a growth centered mindset. And that takes time, because sometimes we're making these self-doubting comments to ourselves, but we don't realize we're doing it. It's just second nature. And so being aware of what we're thinking every moment of the day, it really impacts what we're able to achieve for that particular day.
I absolutely agree. I say all the time, change the channel, because sometimes those negative thoughts will seep in there. So you have to be so conscious of them that you just change the channel to another channel. So I definitely agree with you. I want to talk about confidence a little bit. You know, sometimes we do have, and I heard something you said about we buy into our own cover story, I think is how you phrased it.
Yeah.
But confidence is important in order for you to stay motivated, in order for you to move and take steps forward. How important is it to you? Talk to us a little bit about confidence and being real and true to yourself.
You know, for me, as a person who has overcome sexual abuse and a whole lot of other things, I don't have an overinflated opinion of myself, but I know that I can achieve, if that makes any sense, because I have overcome so many things. Now, to the outside world, they'll say, oh, she's full of herself. No, I just know that I can do it. It may take me longer than it takes the rest of you guys to get it done, but I can do it if I put my mind to it. And for me, that's what confidence is. It doesn't mean that every moment of every day I function at this level, because I don't. I'm just like a mountain or a roller coaster. I'm up and down. I'm up and down. But remember, a roller coaster goes up, it goes down. It may take a curve, but then it's going to climb back up. Then it's going to go down a little bit, then it's going to turn again. And for me, I've learned to accept that's a part of life, because I don't think it would be good for me to be at this level all the time. Because think about the pressure that brings as far as confidence. You know, you may have to think about it for a moment, because I'm thinking about it as I say it. We can understand it if a person is at this level all the time. They're always down on themselves. And we think we want to feel good all the time. But if I'm at this level all the time as far as confidence, imagine the amount of pressure that I'm putting on myself. And then I got to figure out, what am I going to do to help me to achieve at that level everything that I do. And I don't want that. I've learned to accept that I can make it. It's ups and downs, curves, but I can make it. And that's what confidence is. And I think if folks could see it from that perspective, it wouldn't be so off-putting. And folks would realize that their confidence, even if it's down today, that's okay, or down this moment, it creeps back up. And that's what I think confidence is for those of us who are trying to figure out how do we harness it and keep it at a certain level. It's never going to be at a certain level all the time. It's going to be ebbs and flows.
Wow, that's wonderful. One final question is, changing and deciding to transform yourself and your life into a different area is challenging. So how was it for you when you were writing this book, Transformation, and going through some changes for yourself and in the current environment? How was that for you?
I was asking a couple of people recently what it was like for them during COVID. I work from home. And I've worked from home for a long time. So as far as being somewhat isolated, that wasn't the issue. What became the issue for me was the fact that my movements were restricted, because I had to restrict them because of COVID. And so for me, that's when I realized, okay, and I was writing Transformation at the time. That's when I was like, okay, this nurse told me years ago, change is difficult. It was, because my work environment didn't change, but my ability to go out changed. So now I thought about it. Before it was like, oh, I don't want to go anywhere today. And then it was like, I want to go somewhere, but should I go somewhere? What time of day should I go? Do I have gloves? Do I have, my mask? Do I have wipes? All those things made it very challenging for me. And then as I was writing the book, I started to think from that lens also, because sometimes the challenges or the things that are forcing us to change are external. And we have no control. So that means you've got to get to a place also where you can accept that and realize that it's not a reflection of you. It's just a reflection of the times that we're living in. But you can still pivot and make the best of those circumstances.
Wow, Dr. Todd, it was so great talking to you again, and good to see you, and congratulations on your new book. And I'll turn it over to Mary Ellen.
Thanks, Melissa.
Hi, Dr. Taz. You know, I love your book. I love your book. It is inspiring, insightful, very well written. And it's just, I've used it tons of times, just flipping through it and getting the Bible verses and stuff. And I know you have it written in messages. And I gained from reading your book that you call them messages instead of chapters, because I saw these as messages from God.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you for my first question, why these particular 10 messages, and are they in this order for any particular reason?
You know, that's a very good question, Mary Ellen, and thank you for it. As I look at the table of content, there were more. Well, first of all, I made the book small. I was talking with several different people during the process, and I didn't want the book to become overwhelming because we're talking about transformation, and it is challenging. And so I had a whole lot more, but I chose these particular ones. And I think that if you think about the titles of the messages, they kind of weave a story. You know, change is challenging. Free will. What's your primary focus? You got to stay on track. Persecution, you know, things may not go well, but you still got to stay on track. You got to embrace your humility. You're running on empty sometimes, because we started talking about that right off. But the positive self-talk to keep you motivated, acting on point, opinions, not letting them define you. I think that the order is a message. So even if you don't link them together, because you can read them in any order, when you think about the message titles, my hope is that it is encouraging for folks, that it empowers them, and it does it in a quick way just by looking at the titles.
Okay, that was great. My second question, I think message 8 is my favorite, which is positive self-talk. Because I love this positive self-talk, the inner dialogue you have with yourself. And I know when I wake up in the morning, before I even get out of bed, I thank God for the day. And I say, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad. When you arise in the morning, is there a particular positive self-talk or Bible passage you say to yourself or that you give to other people?
Well, you know, I'm led every morning, Mary Ellen, and I'll tell you, this morning I was struggling. I'm like, okay, God, what do you want me to tell your people? When I wake up in the morning, I'm thankful because I know that there's something else he wants me to do just by the mere fact he allowed me to open my eyes and to get up and move on my own. And sometimes when I wake up, I know immediately what he wants. And sometimes I don't. Like this morning, I did not. And I think I talked to him about 2 hours trying to figure out what is it. But normally, once I get it, it's for me too. You know, it's for me. And it took a while for him to give it to me this morning, but I finally got it. And so that message has changed my whole day. And it's allowed me to look at all the things that are happening in the world and in my world, in my space, totally different.
And my third question has to do with message 9, which is acting on point, and self-examination is the key. And I talk to my clients about this as awareness of self, because it is so important to see yourself, because you'll see it in other people, and you need to learn about yourself first. It's an important part of waking up to what God wants you to do. Was there an aha moment or a lightning bolt moment in your life where you knew this was what God wanted you to do?
Well, I call it my Damascus Road experience, like Paul, or like Saul, Paul. And because I had asked God for years, why? And then he gave it to me one morning, and I was driving to work like an hour away, and I shouldn't tell it. I was trying to write things down. I was crying because he gave it to me, and I wasn't expecting it at that moment. Well, he gave me a lot of it. And then I kind of shifted. I ostracized myself. For about a year and a half, I didn't listen to any secular music, and I love music. I listened to nothing but gospel music and sermons. And then I had another day that I was working on something I was trying to pull out of my brain. What was it that you really wanted me to do? And that is the day that I understood that I was always going to write, but I had to write a certain way. And that my writing had to bring hope and joy for people. It had to be like a beacon. And so that's when I got that. And so that sort of shapes how I write. For me, it's always going to be a moral there. And I can't escape it because that's what he told me. The way I got it was Aesop fables, and I know a lot of folks, depending upon what age they are, they won't know what I'm talking about. But if they understand the Bible, when Christ talked, it was about parables, and that's what Aesop fables are. And so that's the way I have to write, and so that was pivotal for me. But then I realized, as I close it out, that I'd always been doing it. I'd always done it. I just didn't recognize that's what I had been doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that, Dr. Taz. You know, I love your book. I highly recommend Transformation to anyone out there who needs to wake up, or even as a gift. It's a great gift book. And I'm going to turn it over to Darius.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Darius.
I'm good. Look, so don't beat me up. I did order your book. It's late though. Forgive me. I do physical therapy, so I've been working. So I got like one question. Look, see there we go. One question.
Okay, one question. Okay.
One question. So during your process, when did you feel the transformation?
Good question.
It's two parts. The first time that I felt it, when I had to accept there was something that I wanted to do, and God said no. And I wanted to do it, and He said no, and that was hard for me, and it was hard for people who knew that there was something I was about to do, and I had to say no. But after then is when I realized that I was supposed to say no, because there were just things that happened. And I was like, yeah, I wasn't supposed to be there. And it just kept coming, you weren't supposed to be there. And then the next stage of that transformation was very recent, because I had not spoke publicly about being a prophetess. And since I've done that, it has kind of freed me. I can't really explain it, but it's freed me, and it's freed me. That's all I can say. It's freed me. And I'm waiting now for the next step, because I don't know what the next stage is going to bring.
Gotcha. Yes. Well, I'm going to pass it along. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to pass it along to Cyrus Webb.
All right. Dr. Taz, it's great to see you as always. I actually just have one question for you as well. And it's based on message 2 of the book. For those who are not following our series, Dr. Taz and I are doing a great series on the messages of transformation. And message 2, Mary Ellen was talking about her favorite one. I think the first 3 are my favorites, so it's hard for me to choose which way. But the message yesterday that we were discussing, for those joining us live and for those catching us on the other platforms, you definitely want to take a look at message 2. It's all about free will. And I want to talk about the consequences, Dr. Taz, because you said something interesting to my co-host, and that is, realizing sometimes we want to do things that the answer may be no, but we know for some people they'll still go and do it anyway, right? We talked in message 1 about Samson and him being told something, and then him giving someone the power to do that one thing that wasn't supposed to be done, and the consequences of that. How much do you think about consequences when you make a decision?
I think about them probably more than the decision, Cyrus. As a counselor, I'm trained to weigh the pros and cons. So I'm always thinking about the consequences. And those consequences really do drive what I do. Then I look at the return on investment. You may call it something else, but when you make a decision and then you act, you're expecting an outcome. So then I have to ask myself, is the return on investment worth, is the likelihood of that, the return of the investment being positive, is that percentage high enough for me to take this leap? Because if it's not, then I have to determine, can I handle the consequences if it doesn't go the way that I want it to go? So for me, it's very important.
Again, everyone, Dr. Teresa A. Smith has been our guest. If you're joining us on the Amazon Live side, you'll see her book, Transformation, highlighted right now. It's available in print as well as a Kindle edition. Make sure you guys do get your copy of it. And Dr. Taz, how can they stay connected with you?
You can find me on Instagram, Dr. Teresa Smith. You can reach me on Facebook, Dr. Teresa Smith, or Talk with Taz. And you can reach me on LinkedIn, Dr. Teresa Smith, aka Dr. Taz.
All right, Dr. Taz, so glad you could join us today for Words I Choose to Live By, and looking forward to our next conversation together.
Thank you guys so much for the honor.
Hey, glad to do it. And since we're letting our audience know how to stay connected, Mary Ellen, you're up next. How can they stay connected with you and get your copy of your books?
Well, just go to askmaryellen.com with quick links over to Amazon for healing words, life lessons to inspire, or truth, taking responsibility unleashes true healing. If you're on YouTube, you can connect with me at Ask Mary Ellen on YouTube. I have great videos on there, all my Miracles with Mary Ellen videos. There's over 100 videos of inspiring and motivational talks. Just connect with me through AskMaryEllen.com, Amazon Live, Conversations Live Radio News Network, WYAD FM in Mississippi. Just go to Ask Mary Ellen, Google it, and you will find me.
Yeah. Melissa, how can they stay connected with you and get your copy of your book?
I make it really easy for you. You can go to themelissabanks.com and you can see all of our platforms, our Dream by Design interviews, and of course, our link to purchasing your book, Dream by Design, the devotional. Get the inspiration you need on a daily basis or whenever you need to change the channel in your mindset. So that's themelissabanks.com.
All right. Appreciate that. And Darius, last but not least, how can they stay connected with you and get your book?
Social media, Instagram, Mr.Ewing1914. Facebook is Darius Ewing, and my other public page, Darius L. Ewing. You can get my book on Amazon, and my page will be up before the end of the month. So stay tuned. I'll give y'all that information.
All right. Thank you so much, Darius. And make sure you guys do get your copy of my book that this show is based on, Words I Choose to Live By, right here on Amazon, both in a paperback, hardcover, as well as a Kindle edition. Thank you, Dr. Taz. Appreciate that. Mary Ellen, appreciate you. And we thank all of you for tuning into this episode of Words I Choose to Live By. Hopefully you've gotten something out of this to motivate and inspire you. And until next time, we'll see you next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.